Sigmund Freud, the man who told the world we all subconsciously want to bang our parents. Well, more than that, his theories and work in the field of psychology has been nothing short of controversial and revolutionary. This man proposed that our personalities, our behaviors, and even our neuroses are governed by an unconscious force beyond our immediate awareness. He introduced the world to concepts like the Oedipus complex, the id, ego, and superego, and the notion that childhood experiences shape our adult lives in profound ways. But who was this man, and how did his ideas ignite controversies that rage on to this day? Why do his theories, over a century later, still provoke debate, skepticism, and fascination? Today on Historical Quarrels, we go over the life of this controversial figure in history and the quarrels he caused by trying to understand the human psyche. So sit down, pull out your pen and paper, as we unwrap the life and mind of Sigmund Freud. Welcome back to Historical Quarrels. I am your host, Tyler Eckhardt, and oh boy, do I have a treat for you today. Moving away from the standard wars and battles of the physical nature, today we are exploring the mental quarrels and conundrums that Sigmund Freud gave us throughout his life. First, we will go over the origin of the field of psychology, how it came to be, and then we will be looking at the life of Sigmund Freud. Quick reminder for everyone that's new to the show. I aim to make this entertaining, to make this more appealing to other people than those in their second year of a history degree. So I will make jokes or references to things, and if you just want straight information, no fun, no personality, then this show definitely isn't for you. So, and that's fine. We're not every show is going to be for everybody. I'm making this for me and for other people who like this. So, and if not a lot of people don't, not if a lot of people like it, that's fine. Like, I'm just having fun doing this. So, with that out of the way, let's dive into today's historical quarrel. You are listening to Historical Quarrels. So the origin of psychology can be traced back to the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Persia, Greece, China, and India, where philosophical inquiries into the mind and behavior were first recorded. However, psychology as a distinct scientific discipline began to emerge about mid-19th century. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the philosophical beginnings up until we get to the psychoanalysis that Sigmund Freud would essentially be the father of. So, ancient philosophers offered many insights into the human mind, some of which might seem strange or unconventional by modern standards. Some of these that I want to go over are, like Plato's tripartite theory of the soul. So, Plato, who is, I'm certain many of you know, just a pivotal figure in Greek philosophy, one of the fathers of philosophy, proposed that the human soul is divided into three parts: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. Appetitive. He believed these parts correspond to different aspects of the psyche and are responsible for different functions of human behavior and decision-making, almost like a pseudo version of what Freud would later create with his id, ego, and superego. It's just very interesting that Plato kind of had this idea too. This concept, while metaphorical, sought to explain the complexity of human emotions and desires, attributing the internal conflict to the misalignment of these three parts of the soul. Also, again, very similar to Freud's theory of like the id's out of whack, the ego's going to be out of whack. Similar concept here, but just different explanations for different feelings or different emotions. Freud would attribute his more to like the mind and neuroses and like mental ailments, and Plato attributed it to like everything. Then again, Freud would also kind of attribute it to like everything too. Like the total impact would, cause you to feel certain ways and throughout your entire day and your entire life. It doesn't matter. Moving on. We also have Aristotle's theory of memory and dreams. He had unique ideas about memory and dreams. He suggested that memories are the result of sensory experiences imprinted onto the mind, likening the process to a signet ring stamping wax. So regarding dreams, he believed that they were remnants of sensory impressions left over from waking life, not messages from the divine or prophetic visions as commonly thought in ancient times. Again, also very interesting, and also kind of grounded in fact as well. But you can still dream up some crazy shit, man. Um, but a lot of it is, like memories, essentially just like being broken apart and played out in different ways for your dreams. But we still don't know enough about dreaming yet. So, and again, it's everyone has unique experiences when it comes to dreams. So Empedocles' theory of perception. He was a pre-Socratic philosopher. He proposed a theory that perception is the result of elements being emitted from objects and interacting with corresponding pores in the senses. For example, he believed that light and image physically entered the eyes, enabling sight. This effluence theory of perception is a fascinating attempt to explain how humans interact with the world around them, albeit far from our current understanding of sensory perception. Not like that far off. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that just he's like, okay, so like the light bounces off this object, enters the eyes, and that it forms an image, which is kind of correct. Just not too far off, which is interesting in itself. And then we have Democritus' atomism and mental health. Democritus, known as the laughing philosopher, was an early proponent of atomism. This is or atomism, the idea that everything in the universe, including the soul and thoughts, is made up of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. He also had theories regarding mental health, suggesting that a harmonious life results from a balanced mix of atoms, while imbalance could lead to diseases of the mind. I mean, kind of right too. I mean, a lot of diseases of the mind are caused by a hormonal imbalance, but it's not like, oh, I guess those are made out of atoms too. But still, I mean, like that's just like saying, hey, this one thing makes everything, and if you have an imbalance of this one thing that makes everything, then yeah, of course you're gonna be messed up. But anyways, this materialist view of psychology is interesting, modern, but was based on a speculative understanding of the physical world at the time. We have Galen's humoral theory. And although Galen was not strictly a philosopher, his work in medicine was deeply influenced by philosophical thought, particularly the theory of the four humors. He believed that the human temperaments and mental states were the result of balances or imbalances in bodily fluids, which would be blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. This theory, originating with Hippocrates, linked mental and physical health directly to the balance of these humors, influencing medical and psychological thought for centuries. That's why bloodletting would be a big thing in like the 1700s. You had a blood imbalance. You had too much blood running through. That's why you were running so hot. Sorry, I have my puppy with me today, so it's he interrupts, and if you guys see him or hear him during this show, I just didn't want him to be feeling all alone downstairs. So. Then we have Plotinus' theory of the soul. Plotinus, a philosopher in the Neoplatonist tradition, posited that the soul exists in a realm above the physical world and descends into the body, forgetting its divine origins. He believed the mind's journey involves remembering its true nature and reuniting with the One, the source of all existence. The metaphysical perspective offers a spiritual interpretation of consciousness and existence beyond the empirical, and in my opinion, is probably wrong. But all of these are examples, and they illustrate how psychology kind of began and got its foot on the ground and started in human civilization. All these philosophers and ancient doctors, they wanted to understand the human body, and part of the human body was the human mind, and what made certain people crazy and what other people made certain other people normal. And it's just a lot of this build up to psychology is just a bunch of work from a bunch of philosophers and a bunch of those interested in studying human nature, studying science over time. So then we get into the Middle Ages. During this period, the philosophical approach to understanding human behavior was heavily influenced by religious and spiritual context. I'm talking pretty much all of it. Scholars like Augustine and Thomas Aquinas integrated psychological thought with Christian theology, focusing on topics such as will, morality, and the soul. So, Christian theology was the main, influence here during this time, at least in European and the Anglo-Saxon history that I have studied for the most part. In other parts of the world, like India or China, I'm positive this was profoundly different, especially thinking about like how big Taoism and other schools of philosophical thought were in regions of Asia and the Middle East. But even in the Middle East, there is still some either Abrahamic religious, I guess, like influences on their thought as well. So Augustine of Hippo, for example, integrated Platonic philosophy with Christian doctrine, emphasizing the soul's journey towards God and the importance of divine grace for human will and morality. Then we have Scholasticism. This movement sought to reconcile Christian theology with the rediscovered philosophy of the ancient Greeks, particularly Aristotle. Thomas Aquinas stands out in this era for his extensive works that argued reason and faith are complementary. Aquinas believed that the human mind could understand the world through reason, but ultimate truths come from divine revelation, which Aristotle probably would have heavily disagreed with. So, it's funny. Avicenna's and Averroes' contributions, so Islamic philosophers like Avicenna or Ibn Sina and Averroes, Ibn Rushd, made significant contributions to the understanding of the psyche. The floating man thought experiment explored human consciousness, and that was from Avicenna's, and suggested that the soul is aware of itself even without physical senses. His works, which were later translated into Latin, influenced European philosophers by quite a bit. We also have humanism, and this was during the Renaissance. This is a revival of interest in human potential and the secular world, leading to a more human-centric view of existence, less deity-centric view. There's a lot of rediscovery of classical texts. Leonardo da Vinci was an exemplar of the Renaissance, curiosity and empirical investigation. Da Vinci conducted detailed studies of human anatomy and physiology. He believed that sensory experience is the source of all knowledge, emphasizing the importance of observation. While not a psychologist, his work reflects the period's growing interest in the empirical and anatomical study of the human body, and by extension, the mind. Which makes sense. I mean, you're not going to try and figure out much if you're not even looking at the body in the first place. Then you have Michel de Montaigne, and their introspective essays delved into the nature of the self, exploring human psychology with remarkable depth. His skepticism towards absolute knowledge and his exploration of themes such as doubt, happiness, and the nature of the mind contributed significantly to the development of philosophical thought about human psychology. And we have Giordano Bruno and the Infinite Universe. Bruno proposed a universe infinite in both size and time, with no central point. And while his ideas were more cosmological than psychological, they challenged the anthropocentric worldview, indirectly influencing the perception of human significance and the mind's place in the universe. Because back then everyone was very full of themselves, essentially. They're like, humans, we're the center of the universe. Everything revolves around us. Even the sun does. And this guy was like, nah, we're not that important in the grand scheme of things. That made a lot of people with a lot of power super mad because they're like, no, I am important. What are you talking about? You shut the fuck up. We also have the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution. During this time, intellectual movements emphasized reason, science, and empirical evidence. There's philosophers such as René Descartes and John Locke. They heavily contributed to psychology by exploring the mind-body relationship, the nature of consciousness, and personal identity. This is where the true birth of psychology typically begins. Like in my AP Psych class, this is where John Locke, and Descartes was they were two super important people for us to memorize and learn about. However, the father of psychology is Wilhelm Wundt. And he is the father of modern psychology. He established the first laboratory dedicated to psychological research at the University of Leipzig in Germany in 1879. This event is commonly regarded as the formal beginning of psychology as a scientific discipline. So here we are. We're at the birth of psychology, technically. And what's interesting is Sigmund Freud was alive during this time, during the birth. As a matter of fact, he was he was 23 at this time. And we have structuralism and functionalism, which was done by Edward B. Titchener, who was a student of Wundt. He introduced structuralism, focusing on analyzing the structure of the mind through introspection. In contrast, William James, inspired by Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, developed functionalism, which sought to understand the functions of the mind and behavior and adapting to the environment, which is also going to be super important later on for modern psychology. And then we have psychoanalysis. Sigmund Freud introduced the psychoanalysis in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, emphasizing the role of the unconscious mind in influencing behavior. Freud's theory of personality, which included concepts such as the id, ego, and superego, had a profound impact on psychology and remains influential today. And that brings us to technically not the start of his life, because we kind of jumped ahead, but to his now life story. So let's go ahead and get into the life of Sigmund Freud. So, in 1856, born Sigmund Shlomo Freud on May 6th in Freiburg in Marin, Moravia of the Austrian Empire, which is now part of the Czech Republic. He entered the world in the small town of Freiburg, which is present day in the Czech Republic, or present day Fribourg. I can't pronounce that word. His birth into a Jewish family with his father, Jacob Freud, a wool merchant, and his mother, Amalia Nathanson Freud, marked the beginning of a life that would leave a lasting mark on the fields of psychology and psychoanalysis. As the eldest of 8 children, Freud's early family life played a significant role in shaping his theories and insights into human psychology. His family situation was complex and financially unstable. A lot of hard choices that Jacob had to make as a dad. So, eventually leading to a move to Vienna when he was 4 years old, a city that would become intrinsically linked with his professional life. And despite the challenges of living in a crowded apartment and the family's ongoing financial difficulties, Freud was an exceptional student, demonstrating an early passion for knowledge, which is great. Jacob must have been like, oh, good, thank God. At least my kid is doing great here. This intellectual curiosity was encouraged by his family, especially his father, who was a significant influence in Freud's early thinking and intellectual pursuits. His dad really wanted him to, push farther and be more than just a wool merchant like him. Just good for him. That all dads should want their sons to be better than them. So it's awesome to watch that happen. We have the cultural and intellectual milieu of Vienna, a vibrant cosmopolitan city at the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time. This provided a very rich backdrop for Freud's development. The city was a center of medical research, philosophy, and art, all of which contributed to Freud's education and eventual career path. His upbringing in a Jewish family amidst the anti-Semitic climate of the time also influenced his later work, particularly his views on culture, society, and the individual's psyche. Despite these challenges, Freud's early life in Freiburg and Vienna set the stage for his amazing contributions to the understanding of the human mind. Okay? And then in 1873, at the tender age of 17, Sigmund Freud embarked on a journey that would lay the foundation for his contributions to the said field in psychoanalysis. He enrolled at the University of Vienna to study medicine, a decision influenced by his keen interest in science and the human mind. The University of Vienna was one of the premier institutions for medical research in Europe, offering Freud access to a vibrant academic community and the latest scientific developments of the time. His decision to study medicine was not driven by a desire to practice traditional medicine, but rather by profound curiosity about the biological underpinnings of human behavior and the mysteries of the brain. He, as a kid, had a lot of questions about, well, why is my sister so fucking crazy? You know, shit like that. And you know, like why am I acting this way? And like all these other boys are like wanting to act this way, or they do this thing. And so you just ask these questions a lot. And so he wanted to figure that out. His years at the university were marked by an extensive exploration of various fields, including physiology, zoology, and philosophy. Reflecting his broad intellectual interests, this period was crucial for Freud's development as a thinker and researcher, as he was exposed to ideas that would later influence the development of the psychoanalytic theory. Yeah, like, you know, he definitely has studied Aristotle, and, you know, would have been like, ah, no, I think he was right, but not quite, you know. And during his time at the University of Vienna, the big ol' U of V, Freud was particularly influenced by the work of Ernst Bruck, a professor of physiology who believed that all living organisms are energy systems governed by physical laws. This perspective really resonated with Freud and would later manifest in his attempts to explain psychological phenomena in terms of sexual and aggressive drives, conceptualizing them as manifestations of underlying energy processes. And it makes sense where he got all of his thoughts from, if he really was like, yeah, this guy, Ernst, he's got it right, you know? Freud's studies also introduced him to the practice of clinical observation and the importance of detailed case studies, methodologies that he would later apply to psychoanalysis. His rigorous training in scientific inquiry and critical analysis equipped him with the tools necessary to challenge existing notions about the mind and lay the groundwork for his ideas. Then in 1881, about 8 years later, Sigmund Freud would graduate with a degree in medicine from the big U of V. This accomplishment marked the culmination of 8 years of diligent study and research, during which Freud immersed himself in various fields of, medicine, anatomy, and physiology. But this medical degree was not just a testament to his intellectual capabilities and hard work, but also a very crucial step to his future explorations of the human psyche. Essentially, being a graduate gave him a lot more leeway into getting grants and to being able to access more studies and get more people behind him researching things that he wanted to find the answers to. So following his graduation, Freud did not immediately enter into the practice of medicine. Instead, he was drawn to research, particularly in the areas of neurology and neuropathology. And so his interest in these fields was motivated by the curiosity about the mechanisms of the human mind and underlying causes of these mental disorders. So this medical background provided him with a very solid foundation in scientific methodology and a deep understanding of biological aspects of human behavior, both of which would really help him during this time. And so in 1882, about a year later, after his graduation, he began to work at the Vienna General Hospital. This move was a very important step in his development, offering him hands-on experience in clinical practice and exposure to a wide range of medical conditions. He got to witness a lot of shit going on at the hospital. So his work at the hospital covered various departments, including psychiatry, neurology, and dermatology. Just checking people for problems with their skin. If you had a freckle, that meant you were going to go crazy in about 3 years. No. Allowing Freud to hone his diagnostic and therapeutic skills while deepening his understanding of the human pathology and psychology. But his tenure at the General Hospital was marked by an evolving interest in the psychological aspects of medicine. He wanted to research it more. He became more drawn to it during his time here because he believed that if he could solve certain mental problems, then people wouldn't have these other physical ailments or seemingly physical ailments if they were able to cure the mental issues first. Which, it's kind of right. But during this time at the hospital, Freud also began a lot of early research into the effects of cocaine as a local anesthetic and its potential therapeutic uses, including its application in treating morphine addiction, which is hilarious to think, oh, hey, here, we can cure your morphine addiction by getting you hooked on coke. Which is interesting. I feel like you would just have two addictions at that point. Just I gotta do blow, and then I have my upper, and then I gotta have my downer. I was a little too up, so now I gotta get my downer going with the morphine. Goddamn. Although his work with cocaine would later be subject to criticism, it would show like Freud's search for innovative treatments and willingness to explore new scientific frontiers. He wasn't a guy who was going to stay within the box of what was known. He wanted to go outside the box. And then in 1885, his career took a significant turn when he received a grant to study under Jean-Martin Charcot, the renowned French neurologist at the Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris. The experience was transformative for Freud and had a profound impact on the direction of his future work. Charcot was a leading figure in the study of hysteria and neurological disorders, and was very, very well known for his innovative use of hypnosis as a treatment method. And so Freud's time with Charcot exposed him to new ideas about the mind and its disorders, challenging and expanding his understanding of neurology and psychology. Charcot's demonstrations of how hypnosis could be used to alleviate the symptoms of hysteria fascinated Freud. These observations suggested to him that the origins of some neurological symptoms might be psychological rather than physiological, a radical idea at the time. Charcot's work provided Freud with empirical evidence that supported the existence of mental processes outside conscious awareness, a concept that would become a cornerstone of his psychoanalytic theory. The methodologies Charcot employed, particularly his analytical approach to case studies and his emphasis on careful observation of patients, deeply influenced Freud's own methodology. So, in 1856, born Sigmund Shlomo Freud on May 6th in Freiburg in Marin, Moravia of the Austrian Empire, which is now part of the Czech Republic. He entered the world in the small town of Freiburg, which is present day in the Czech Republic, or present day Pribor. I can't pronounce that word. His birth into a Jewish family with his father, Jacob Freud, a wool merchant, and his mother, Amalia Nathanson Freud, marked the beginning of a life that would leave a lasting mark on the fields of psychology and psychoanalysis. As the eldest of 8 children, Freud's early family life played a significant role in shaping his theories and insights into human psychology. His family situation was complex and financially unstable. A lot of hard choices that Jacob had to make as a dad. So, eventually leading to a move to Vienna when he was 4 years old, a city that would become intrinsically linked with his professional life. And despite the challenges of living in a crowded apartment and the family's ongoing financial difficulties, Freud was an exceptional student, demonstrating an early passion for knowledge, which is great. Jacob must have been like, oh, good, thank God. At least my kid is doing great here. This intellectual curiosity was encouraged by his family, especially his father, who was a significant influence on Freud's early thinking and intellectual pursuits. His dad really wanted him to, push farther and be more than just a wool merchant like him. Just good for him. That all dads should want their sons to be better than them. So it's awesome to watch that happen. We have the cultural and intellectual milieu of Vienna, a vibrant cosmopolitan city at the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time. This provided a very rich backdrop for Freud's development. The city was a center of medical research, philosophy, and art, all of which contributed to Freud's education and eventual career path. His upbringing in a Jewish family amidst the anti-Semitic climate of the time. So first off, we have Dora, or Ida Bauer. And this case study of Dora is one of his most famous and involves a young woman suffering from hysteria. Dora experienced symptoms such as coughing, aphonia, which is loss of voice, and nervousness, which Freud interpreted as manifestations of repressed feelings and conflicts, particularly involving her family and an older family friend. This case was pivotal for Freud's exploration of dream interpretation and the Oedipus complex. So, that was one. There's she was wanting to bang her dad potentially, and that's where we get that from. And we'll go over that more later. We also have Ratman. Shit you not. He was called Ratman. That was a nickname that Freud gave to a patient who sought treatment for his obsessive thoughts and fears, most famously for his fear of rats, which was an anxiety that Freud linked to deeper underlying conflicts and repressed impulses, including issues of guilt, aggression, and sexual repression. He wanted to fuck the rats, man. That's why he was so scared of them. He was scared of wanting to have sex with them. No, that's not all happened. The detailed analysis of Ratman's fears and fantasies was crucial for development of Freud's theories regarding obsessive compulsive disorder, so OCD, and the mechanisms of repression and defense. We also have Wolfman, also known as Sergei Pankechev. Though this would be much later in Freud's career, the Wolfman case is another influential study that would impact the psychoanalytic theory quite a bit. Pankechev suffered from a range of symptoms, including a debilitating dream about wolves, which Freud interpreted as a manifestation of repressed childhood traumas and a Oedipal conflict. Freud would link a lot of things to childhood trauma and you as a kid wanting to bang a parent, essentially. So clearly you were wanting to have sex with your mother, and that is why you are afraid of wolves. Excuse me, Freud? That would happen quite a bit, honestly. And then little Hans, or Herbert Graf, was a young boy whose fear of horses Freud interpreted as a manifestation of Oedipal complex and castration anxiety. Oh, man. Though Freud did not treat Hans directly, he did not tell him, well, you need to go have sex with your mother. He analyzed the case based on reports from the boy's father, who was a follower of Freud. The case of little Hans was crucial in the development of Freud's theories on child sexuality and the phallic stage of psychosexual development. Also, again, a lot of pseudoscience here, but he gets to a point in his career where he kind of gets an echo chamber going, and everybody's like, yes, no, you're right. And, Freud would keep doing this. And then finally we have Martha Bernays. That's right, his wife. His wife would criticize him for not picking up after himself and for not doing the dishes enough. And so he essentially placed her into his psychiatric care and would then tell her that her own Oedipal complex is why she's demanding so much of her husband, which he wouldn't ever refer to himself in that context while, being her psychologist. He'd just be like, no, listen, I'm your psychologist right now. Your husband's completely separate from me. No, I wish. That'd be really funny if he did that. Just the ultimate gaslighting. But no, his wife did play a significant role in his life, however, both as a partner and confidant. Their marriage, which lasted until Freud's death in 1939, was a source of emotional support and stability for Freud. The couple had 6 children, and their family life provided you can see how it influences Freud's work and his intense research that he would undertake, essentially. But her unwavering support was crucial during the years when Freud's ideas were met with skepticism and controversy within the medical and scientific communities. Which I'm glad they were initially met with skepticism, because there's a lot of stuff in there where I'm like, oh, that's a little much. But eventually, people are like, nah, it's not enough. And yeah, he was right about everything. We need to keep looking at where he was right about a few things, and just we needed to do a little more research into those few things he was right about, not necessarily everything that he was talking about, which is fine. That's what we eventually did. But as you can see, 1886, very important year in his life. 5 years later, in 1891, Sigmund Freud made a huge contribution to the field of neurology with the publication of On Aphasia. This was a comprehensive study exploring the neurological aspects of language and its disorders. This work demonstrated Freud's deep engagement with the biological underpinnings of human functions and marked an important phase in his intellectual development, showcasing his capacity for original thought in areas beyond the confines of traditional neurology. I know that was a lot. There was a lot all at once, but stay with me. Onaphasia was a critical examination of the then prevailing theories about aphasia, which is a disorder characterized by the loss of the ability to understand or express speech caused by brain damage. Freud challenged the contemporary understanding of aphasia, arguing against the simplistic localization of language functions in specific areas of the brain. Instead, he proposed a more complex model that emphasized the dynamic interactions between different regions of the brain in the production and comprehension of language, which is much more correct. Freud's work on aphasia highlighted his interest in the mechanisms of mental processes and laid the groundwork for his later explorations into the psychic apparatus and the unconscious mind. This publication is notable not only for its contributions to the field of neurology, but also for illustrating Freud's methodological approach. My God. I can pronounce that word, damn it. Anyways, this approach, which combined careful observation with a willingness to question established doctrines, and Freud's analysis of aphasia reflected his broader ambition to uncover hidden structures that underlie human thought and behavior. Though aphasia did not gain the immediate recognition of some of Freud's later works, its significance lies in the early indication of Freud's shift from a purely medical perspective to a much more psychological and interpretive approach to human behavior. It really would foreshadow a lot of his eventual departure from conventional neurology and his pioneering development of psychoanalytic theory. And then in 1895, 4 years later, he co-authors, alongside Joseph Breuer, studies on hysteria, which was a very important work that introduced the concept of psychoanalysis to the world. This collaboration between Freud and Breuer marked a pivotal moment in the history of psychology. It laid the foundational principles for what would become the psychoanalytic movement. Studies on hysteria comprised a series of case studies that explored the etiology and treatment of hysteria, a psychological disorder that was characterized by a wide array of physical and mental symptoms without an apparent organic cause. Breuer's treatment of a patient known as Anna O was central to the development of the book's ideas. Through her treatment, Breuer discovered the therapeutic effectiveness of talking about distressing experiences, which he termed the talking cure or cathartic method. Freud and Breuer theorized that hysteria was rooted in the repression of traumatic memories and that bringing these repressed memories into conscious awareness could alleviate the symptoms. The idea here is if it's unconsciously on your mind, it's going to influence actions, and you're not able to combat some of the feelings because it's just deeply rooted within you. Whereas if you bring it to the conscious and you realize, oh, this is why, I just need to deal with this, and I need to, this is what I'm actually angry at. I'm not going to be angry at, or do these other crazy actions. This process of exploring and verbalizing emotional experiences laid the groundwork for the psychoanalytic therapy. It also introduced several key concepts that would become staples in Freudian psychoanalysis, including the importance of the unconscious mind, the role of childhood experiences in shaping adult psychology, and the use of free association as a therapeutic technique. While Breuer was more cautious about the implications of their findings, Freud was inspired to further develop these ideas, eventually expanding upon them to form the basis of psychoanalytic theory. Breuer was like, listen, this might have worked a couple times, but it's maybe not gonna work every time. And Freud was like, nah, this is the route that we are going. We're going to tell everyone that they want to fuck the moms and the dads, and if they can confront those feelings and some things that happened to them as kids, maybe they got diddled by a priest or two, then we will cure everybody of all the symptoms and problems. Why are we not trying to pursue this faster, Breuer, you son of a bitch? Yeah, so shit like that essentially went down. But this represented a shift in understanding of mental illness, suggesting that psychological rather physiological factors could underlie certain disorders. His work also very much illustrated Freud's complete interest now in the psychological mechanisms and behind neuroses. He was all consumed at this point. It was all or nothing for him. And so in 1896, he would term Freud would first introduce the term psychoanalysis. This is the first time we'd hear about psychoanalysis, signaling the formal inception of a new theoretical and clinical approach to understanding and treating mental disorders. In the same year, he published the Etiology of Hysteria, where he further explored the themes introduced in studies on hysteria and began to articulate more clearly his theories on the origins of neuroses. This period also saw the death of Freud's father, Jacob Freud, which was an event that deeply affected him and influenced his subsequent work. And you can kind of see he kind of battles a bout of depression during this period of time. Jacob, unlike a lot of great man's fathers, was actually a good dad. You know, he cared a lot about his son, and Sigmund obviously really loved his dad, and so losing him was hard. It was pretty rough, which is something. This is gonna be shitty to say, but it's like I like to see that like people actually have like good fathers in their lives. Like some great people that just have a good dad. It's not all shit. May have had like a rougher childhood, like with finances and stuff, but that's whatever. It's not like he's getting beaten daily and like hates his dad. Instead, he has someone that he respects, someone that he trusted, and he lost him, and that made him understandably pretty fucking depressed. And so the introduction of the term psychoanalysis represented Freud's effort to establish a distinct identity for his method, emphasizing its focus on the role of the unconscious processes in shaping behavior in psychopathology. By naming his method, Freud delineated his approach from other psychological theories and therapeutic practices of the time, highlighting its innovative focus on the exploration of the unconscious mind through techniques like dream interpretation and free association. The Etiology of Hysteria was a critical work in which Freud began to assert that the root causes of hysteria and other neuroses were to be found in repressed memories of traumatic sexual experiences in early childhood. Again, everything was sex as a kid, essentially, for Freud. This publication was controversial, as it challenged the prevailing views on hysteria and proposed a sexual etiology for mental disorders, which was met with resistance and skepticism by the medical community of the time. Now, a lot of people didn't want to think about the time where, Father John touched the junk a couple times during choir practice. They didn't want to think about that. They were repressed it for about 20 years. They're married, had kids. They didn't want to, think about it, and they wanted to keep beating their families. Beating. And a lot of times, that is what happened. They have a lot of deep-rooted anger about very traumatic experience that they just never talked about. And as soon as they're able to talk about it, like that anger's gone. So sometimes it doesn't always work like that. I know. But in addition to this, the death of Freud's father triggered a profound period of self-analysis and reflection. It prompted Freud to delve deeper into the exploration of his own dreams and unconscious thoughts, leading to significant insights that would influence the development of his theories on the Oedipus complex and the dynamics of the family relationships and shaping the psyche. Sometimes this part with his Oedipus complex, it makes me wonder if his mom read his works and if like dinner at her house, what would be her house after Jacob's death, was just really awkward for a time. He'd come over and be like, "Oh, hello, mother, how you doing?" And she'd just kind of sit there quiet. Pretty good, Freud. I've read your study on the Oedipus complex. Oh, yeah? How did you like it? Just no clue what he essentially implied about himself. Anyways, this personal introspection contributed to Freud's understanding of the universal significance of parental figures in the psychological development of individuals, which is true. Parental figures and child development is very important. right now the idea in psychology is it's a mix of internal and external factors that make up a person's capability for good or like for evil. Are people just intrinsically evil and learn to overcome that, or are people intrinsically good and overcome that, or are people made to be evil because of their environment, or are people made to be good because of their environment? And right now the idea is it's a bit of both. So, people can be intrinsically good or they can be intrinsically evil, and how they grow up, their environment's not going to have as big of an impact. However, sometimes their environment will have a bigger impact on them and help them learn to overcome certain thoughts or desires. And Freud essentially helped begin this thought process as more of like the external, like it's the external environment and things that happen to the person. So it's more of like a person's reaction to external forces as opposed to an internal desire for these things. And then in 1899, we have the interpretation of dreams. So right after his dad died, he began his own dream journal and started figuring out this shit. He would begin he published the interpretation of dreams, which is about 3 years later. It was a monumental work that was to lay the foundation for much of his later theory and permanently altered the landscape of psychological thought. The book bears the publication date of 1900. It was actually released in the closing weeks of 1899, so like late December. The seminal text introduced the concept of dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, something I had to memorize in AP Psychology for some tests, providing invaluable insights into the hidden workings of the mind. The interpretation of dreams elaborates on Freud's belief that dreams are not random or nonsensical, but are profoundly meaningful and can be analyzed to reveal the unconscious desires, thoughts, and motivations that drive individuals. Freud essentially here would say that dreams serve as a form of wish fulfillment, allowing for the safe expression of repressed desires that cannot be satisfied in waking life. Which part of me agrees with, part of me disagrees with, but a lot of my own personal thoughts on this are I agree with it to a point, because when I do have dreams and when I can control them, I definitely do whatever the hell I want. Like when you begin to lucid dream and you figure out like how to do it, or if you are able to do it. I don't know if it's like just like a genetic thing that only some people can lucid dream, but I've been able to lucid dream for a while. I can't. The fucked up part is though, when I go to sleep, I don't always dream, but when I do, I can lucid dream a bit, and I'll do some crazy shit in it usually. Like I can. It's weird. When I'm dreaming, sometimes I can make myself fly, and like I have that like feeling of flying, and like when I dive down, I get like that sinking feeling in the dream, which is really cool. And like I just do whatever I want, like at the time in the dream, or sometimes like I become lucid during part of a dream and I just continue the story of like what I think the dream is supposed to be. And so that's sometimes interesting, and I just kind of get to play out whatever my mind is trying to play out for me. But then I'm like kind of conscious in the dream. It's weird. So I do kind of agree with this. And there, in the safe expression of repressed desires part, that's is it repressed if you're consciously choosing to do it while you're lucid dreaming is a big question, or is it just like something you really want to do but you can't do? It's like playing a video game essentially. A video game is like a good demonstration of this. Like people will go and like in Grand Theft Auto, they'll go like kill a civilian and just like run away, get away with it, or they'll mug people. And like the concept of doing that in real life is awful, but like in a dream or like a video game, you can do it and you're not actually harming someone, and you're not really doing any actual harm at all to like a real person, so it's okay. Which is weird. It's weird. So like part of it's like it is true, and I feel like video games have really demonstrated some of his theories to be a little bit more true here in modern days with that part. But Freud's method of dream analysis, involved the examination of the dream's elements and the associations they evoked in the dreamer, leading to an interpretation of the dream's latent content. The process illustrated his broader methodological his broader method to psychoanalysis. I'm just gonna say method. I wanted to write out like the appropriate name for it. Do the whole good old college try, but god damn it, my tongue doesn't want to say methodological. Oh my god. Ugh. Anyways, this would emphasize the importance of unconscious processes and the therapeutic potential of bringing these to conscious awareness. What's silly is initially this was met with indifference, selling poorly and attracting little critical attention. However, its significance grew over time as Freud's ideas gained traction, eventually being recognized as a groundbreaking text that introduced new depth to the understanding of the human psychology. The work was instrumental in establishing the credibility of psychoanalysis and as a valid scientific discipline, and has had a lasting impact on both psychology and popular culture. And a lot of this shit still kind of goes on today. People will try and interpret their dreams, like, oh, I saw a horse. That means like, like, I don't think my boyfriend has like a big enough dick. Like shit like that, which is actually interesting. I did pull a few of like Freud's dream interpretations, so like objects to like what they would actually mean. So let me grab a couple of those for you right now. Okay, so the person as a whole is often represented in the form of a house. So houses with smooth walls are men, and those with projections and balconies to which one might cling are women. Parents appear in dreams as kings, queens, or other highly respected persons. Children and siblings are symbolized as small animals or vermin. So, if you're dreaming about a house and your walls are smooth, you're thinking about a dude. Okay, that's what you want. You want a dude. However, if it has like balconies and shit you can climb on, you want to climb on women, which is, I don't know. I'm curious like how he drew these conclusions. It's been a long time since I've had to like study Freud, so I don't remember a whole lot. But continuing on, more symbols are birth is almost always represented by some reference to water. So either one plunges into water or climbs out of it, rescues someone from water or gets rescued from water, indicating a mother-like relationship to that person. So, like, if your spouse rescues you from drowning, it's you view your spouse almost like as like a mom, and you now have an Oedipus complex or an Electra complex. And then death is replaced in dreams by taking a journey. So nakedness is symbolized by clothing, especially uniforms. And then we have the richest collection of symbols is reserved for the sphere of sexual life. So according to Freud, most of the symbols in dreams are sex symbols. So I was not joking earlier when I was like, okay, so you saw this, well, that means you want to, you're thinking about penis. You're thinking about banging someone. The number 3 is a substitute for the male genital. That's right, for a dick. So whereas the penis alone is also represented by long upright objects such as sticks, umbrellas, poles, trees, or even like, something like the Washington Monument essentially could be considered a symbolic for the phallus. It can also be symbolized by objects that can penetrate the body and cause injury. So knives, daggers, lances, swords, and firearms. That's right. You think you're having a dream about fighting a dragon? No. That dragon is your mom, and you stabbing your sword into the dragon is you wanting to penetrate your mom. Yeah. Just blew your fucking mind. You need to deal with that because that's wrong. Okay, that's not essentially. These are all substituted for male genitalia, or objects out of which water flows, such as faucets and fountains. Which to me is kind of crazy because, dudes are the only one that like pee or like have water essentially come out of them, and girls actually like they're I don't know, whatever. Does not matter. Well, it kind of does. Also, objects that can be elongated, such as telescopes and collapsible pencils, are noted as being phallic in nature or symbolizing a penis. So if you're vigorously, opening up a telescope in your dream, you are trying to jack off another dude. Okay, that's you're gay, and that is okay. If you need to relieve some stress right now, I can help you. And that's what Freud would do. He'd cheat on his wife quite a bit with a bunch of people that he convinced that were gay because of the dreams. No, he did nothing like that. No, he loved his wife. Loved her very much. Okay. The extraordinary characteristic of an erection, in which the penis races itself against the force of gravity, results in a symbolic representation by balloons, airplanes, missiles, and rockets. And although rockets at the time, well, they weren't as commonly used because they were just being invented by the Nazis, during the time of Freud's death. Balloons and like other things that would kind of lift off and go against gravity is something that Freud would interpret as an erection or a penis, essentially. In some cases, the entire person becomes a representation of the sex organ if the person pictures himself flying. Other less obvious male symbols include reptiles, especially snakes and fish, hats, and coats. Moving on to the women now, the female genitals are symbolically represented by objects which enclose a space capable of being filled by something. That's right, ladies. Your shame cave is only for being filled. You gotta fill it up with something. You can't rub it against anything. Nothing like that. It's female genitals are meant to be filled. Such a weird, fucking misogynistic take on this, to be honest. So, for example, you'd have pits, caves, bottles, boxes, trunks, jars, suitcases, pockets, ships, the mouth. That's right. A mouth is just a woman. So if you're kissing a mouth in the dream, even if that mouth is attached to a man, you're still kissing a woman. Churches and shoes. Wooden and paper objects are symbols of women, whereas breasts are represented by apples, peaches, and fruits in general. So if you're dreaming about being in a field of peaches, which actually that one does kind of make sense. I get that one. Though I would have pictured a peach or like a peach to be more like an ass, like more booty, more booty. Freud, you weren't thinking about the buttocks, and the buttocks is like one of the best parts. Come on now. Jewels and treasure may represent a beloved person, while sweets frequently stand in for sexual delight. So if you're eating chocolate in your dream, you want to have sexual delight. Masturbation may be disguised as sliding, coasting, or tearing branches off of trees. That's right. If you're dreaming about like trimming your trees, you're wanting to masturbate. Dreaming of one's teeth falling out or being pulled indicates a fear of castration as a punishment for masturbation. So you're scared of your mom cutting off your dick for touching yourself, okay, or your dad. Sexual intercourse may be symbolized by an array of scenes and interactions between male and female symbols. So if you see like the number 3 rubbing up against an apple, you wanted to have some sex, buddy. Yeah, a lot of this shit is crazy, and a lot of it has been debunked. Well, some of it is still being used, so yeah, good for them. And then about 6 years later, in 1905, Sigmund Freud published 3 essays on the theory of sexuality, which is it marked a very significant advancement in his theoretical framework and had a very profound impact on psychology and society at large, especially society here. In this groundbreaking text, Freud expanded the domain of psychoanalysis to include the study of sexuality, presenting a series of radical ideas that challenged conventional beliefs about human sexual development and behavior. The 3 essays theory is that sexuality is a fundamental driving force in human behavior and development, beginning at infancy rather than at puberty, as was commonly believed, which I have a hard time accepting as fact. Or not really, I shouldn't accept it as fact, but still. I have a hard time rationalizing how he came up with this one. Freud introduced several key concepts through this work, including the notions of infantile sexuality, the Oedipus complex, and the libido as a sexual energy present from birth. He proposed that sexual development proceeds through a series of stages: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital, each characterized by the focus of libidinal energy on different erogenous zones. Like as a baby, they like sucking their thumb, right? So they're going to be they want to do stuff orally. It's like it's really fucked up. I don't want to really get into it all that much, to be honest. If you want to look into it, you can. There's some stuff that I'm like, babies have no concept. I don't know how you could. They just want to eat, and poop and sleep. Okay, those are the three things that they do. One of the most controversial aspects of Freud's theory was the idea of infantile sexuality, suggesting that children experience sexual feelings and attachments from a very early age. This challenged societal norms and scientific knowledge of the time, which viewed children as asexual beings. Freud's theories on the Oedipus complex, which posited that children experience a subconscious desire for the parent of the opposite sex while viewing the same-sex parent as a rival, were also met with significant skepticism and debate. The only experience I have had as a father that even remotely resembles this is the fact that both my boys prefer their mom to me. Part of that is, I think, just due to the fact that, my wife is really cool. She's just pretty cool. And like, I get it, like the people want to hang out with her more, which is awesome. And I think that the kids just like to have cool company. But at the same time, like when I'm hugging Maddie and my boys witness me, sometimes they'll just immediately jump in and try and like take their mom away from me. And so it does make me think back on Freud's idea here. And I'm like, oh my God. Ah, shit, he might have a point here. So, but I forgive me for saying gross earlier. It's just the idea of like children even subconsciously thinking about this, which means like, yes, children aren't actively thinking about these sexual thoughts or desires. They don't actively want to have sex with like their mom or anything. It's just a subconscious driven desire, but all of it is sexual in nature. And I do not have a daughter, but my friend does, and the daughter prefers the dad over the mom and gets jealous when the mom hugs the dad. And so again, this Oedipus and Electra bullshit, there's some truth to it, surprisingly. We also have this 3 essays on the theory of sexuality also addressed issues of sexual orientation, deviance, and the variability of sexual behavior, arguing against the pathological treatment of homosexuality and emphasizing the spectrum of sexual desires and expressions. So, good for him, kind of. There's still a lot of work to be done there at the time. I don't know. But for the most part, he was kind of accepting of homosexuality. He's like, no, it's a normal desire that humans have. This is normal, kind of. There's some aspects to the work where it's, again, they called it deviancy, and that's not right, but that's fine. That's whatever. It's a step towards the right direction for the most part. But despite initial resistance, Freud's essay significantly influenced the fields of psychology and psychiatry, and it gets used today. I mean, fuck, I just brought up the fact that like I recognized my son's behavior for wanting their mom as like part of like Freud's idea here. Like it's influenced my life too, and probably has influenced many of the listeners here. And then 4 years later, in 1909, Sigmund Freud delivered a series of lectures at Clark University in Worcester, fucking Eldritch speech, Massachusetts. God damn it. We all know what happens in Massachusetts. Lots of evil ancient vampires hiding around there. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you get that. Anyways, marking a significant moment in the history of psychoanalysis and its introduction to the American audience. Freud was invited by G. Stanley Hall, the president of Clark University, to commemorate the university's 20th anniversary. Freud's visit to the United States provided a unique opportunity to present his theories directly to an American academic and clinical audience at a time when his work was beginning to gain international recognition. He was a big man at this point. I mean, this guy was being offered like $25,000, which at the time, fuck ton of money, to essentially read a newspaper and then write about it and send it to like the newspaper, or like read about a case in a newspaper and just be like, hey, so this is what I think was happening actually. They actually had more than likely had some traumatic experiences with their mother, where they were never able to fully express the repressed sexual desires for them. Shit like that. And you get paid like 25 grand. He turned down like $100,000 from a Hollywood executive in America, or from someone wanting to essentially shoot like a film. Or no, it's writing a book about no. Shoot a film about some like crazy case studies, and like they wanted him to be like a consultant. He was like, nah, I already basically did this earlier, so just take that. Just take like what I wrote and you can add it to the film. It was like, he wasn't like humble, but like for the most part he seemed honestly kind of chill. Just the way he approached certain things. Besides like his whole like approach to studying the unconscious mind. So Freud's lectures at this university, Clark University, was delivered over 5 days from September 6th to the 11th. They were pivotal in several respects. They offered a comprehensive overview of his psychoanalytic theories, covering topics such as the unconscious, dream interpretation, neurosis, and the development of psychosexual stages. This was a crucial moment for Freud, personally and professionally, as it represented an official recognition and validation of his work from an esteemed academic institution outside of Europe. So, besides all the Europeans, like the Americans were wanting to do it too, and pretty soon the Canadians, and then pretty soon everybody else. The impact of these lectures were immediate and profound. They not only introduced psychoanalysis to a wider audience in the US, but also helped to establish it as a significant field of inquiry within psychology and psychiatry. Many of those in attendance were influential figures in American psychology and medicine, and Freud's ideas sparked intense discussions and debates among the academic community, leading to the formation of the psychoanalytic societies and training institutes in the US. So him showing up for like a week talking about his ideas caused an entire institute to show up in the US, man. It's crazy. The Clark lectures were later published as 5 lectures on psychoanalysis, becoming one of Freud's most accessible and widely read texts. Something I had to read in high school for my AP Psych class. Something that I feel like most people just regularly studying psychology, or if you took a psych class in high school, you probably more than likely read. The lectures played a key role in the international spread of psychoanalysis, contributing to its development as a global movement. So this is a very important event in not only his life, but in psychology as a whole. And then in 1913, Sigmund Freud expanded the reach of psychoanalytic theory beyond the individual psyche to encompass the culture and religion with the publication of Totem and Taboos. That's right. He went beyond the individual and went to more of like sociological approach here. This work represented a significant departure from his earlier focus on the individual, applying psychoanalytic principles to the study of society and its earliest forms of social organization and belief systems. Through a series of essays, Freud drew parallels between the neuroses of individuals and the rituals and taboos of primitive societies, proposing that modern civilization and its cultural practices could be understood through the lens of psychoanalytic theory. Totem and Taboo comprises 4 essays, such as each exploring different aspects of social and religious phenomena through a psychoanalytic framework. Freud investigated the origins of totemism, the ambivalence of emotions towards the totem, animal, or entity, the taboo against incest, and the psychological mechanisms behind magic, and the omnipotence of thoughts. He argued that these cultural practices reflected the unconscious mind and the repressed desires of individuals within the society. Essentially taking an approach that is meant to be applied on a very individual, like one-by-one basis, and subjecting an entire culture, an entire history, empire to this approach, and generalizing quite a bit, which, it helps kind of getting a framework for some of them, maybe some of the leaders, People who wrote the shit. So getting ideas about them, but I would say for sociology, it's not as great, but it does help. So, one of the most provocative ideas in Totem and Taboo is the analogy Freud drew between the Oedipus complex, a concept he had developed in his earlier works, and the totemic systems of primitive societies. He suggested that the universal prohibition of incest and the reverence for totems could be traced back to a collective, primal event in which the sons of a primal horde murdered their father, who was both a rival and an authority figure, and subsequently experienced guilt. This guilt, according to Freud, was the basis for the establishment of social laws, taboos, and religious practices. So one of our ancient ancestors, them and some of their brothers killed their dad, and then felt super bad about it, and were like, guys, you know what? It's a little fucked up about what we did. Probably shouldn't have killed dad. We gotta make sure this doesn't happen again. Let's throw down some laws. Come on. Rule 1: don't kill your dad. Rule 2: just moved on from there. Interesting concept. So while this was groundbreaking in its attempt to bridge individual psychology and cultural anthropology, it was also met with a bunch of criticism from anthropologists and sociologists who questioned Freud's speculative approach and his use of psychoanalytic theory to explain cultural phenomena. Despite these criticisms, the book did have a lasting impact on the fields of psychology, anthropology, and cultural studies, influencing subsequent theories of culture and religion. So, good for him. And then in 1923, about 10 years later, Sigmund Freud would be diagnosed with jaw cancer and penis cancer. Now, could you imagine if his whole work, since most of his work has been based around the dick, around sex and stuff, if he got prostate or testicle cancer, that would just be like a cherry on top of a fucking sundae right there. Just be yep, that's what happens when you talk about your penis too much. You're gonna get chopped off because of the cancer. But no, he did get jaw cancer. It was a consequence of his lifelong habit of heavy cigar smoking. He didn't just chewed a little too much. Got a little bit too much of the tobacco in there. It's pretty rough there. This diagnosis initiated a long and painful ordeal during which Freud underwent more than 30 surgical procedures over the next 16 years in an attempt to manage the disease. The impact of this cancer diagnosis on Freud's work and personal life was quite profound. Despite the pain and the discomfort from the surgeries and the wearing of a prosthesis to replace the removed portion of his jaw, Freud's dedication to his work remained undiminished. Remarkably, he continued to write, see patients, and contribute to the development of psychoanalytic theory and practice. And during this period, Freud authored several significant works, including The Ego and the Id in 1923, Inhibition, Symptom, and Anxiety in 1926, and Civilization and Its Discontents in 1930, among others. But this illness and the repeated surgeries he endured took a toll on his physical health, but his intellectual vigor and his commitment to exploring the complexities of the human mind were unwavering. The manner in which Freud dealt with his cancer, analyzing his own dreams and physical symptoms with his psychoanalytic lens that he developed himself, reflected his lifelong belief in the mind's power and the importance of understanding the unconscious. The personal suffering Freud experienced did not deter his scientific ambitions, but rather seemed to deepen his insights into human suffering, resilience, and the psychological mechanisms of coping with illness and pain. A lot of important works would come from this too, that I mentioned already earlier. But his illness also influenced his views on death, leading to more explicit reflections on mortality and the human condition in his later work. And this is a very, very big moment for his life, and it really demonstrates why he was so pushy with a lot of shit towards the end here, and wanted to get his point across, because he was searching for answers. I mean, if I got diagnosed with cancer too, I'd also be I need to know what happens. I need to know why I'm feeling this way, and that's what he tried to do. So in 1930, amidst personal health struggles, and post World War I, the world society, Sigmund Freud published one of his most influential and critically acclaimed works. It's called Civilization and Its Discontents. This is one of the most important pieces of work that we have in the field of psychology, like for modern psychology. It's very important. So he examines the fundamental discord that arises from the individual's quest for freedom and society's need for order and conformity, which presenting a pessimistic view of the capacity for human happiness in the constraints of civilization. Freud essentially argues that civilization is built on the suppression of instinctual desires, with laws and cultural norms serving to restrain the individual's sexual and aggressive urges. This suppression, while necessary for functioning of society, leads to a perpetual state of discontent among its members. Freud suggests that the resulting psychic conflict is an unavoidable consequence of the dichotomy between the individual's natural inclinations and the collective expectations of society, which is pretty fucking accurate, honestly. It's the individual against society. It's like we want individual freedoms, but we also want protections. And protections will always take away freedoms for the most part. I mean, there might be one or two. I'm not going to like deeply think about this right now, but there might be like one or two freedoms that, you know, can get protected and doesn't, or like one or two protections we can get without, removing freedom from ourselves. But I mean, everything is like a give and a take in life for the most part. So civilization and its discontents also explore the role of religion, art, and culture as mechanisms through which individuals seek to mitigate their existential unhappiness. Freud views religion as an illusion that provides a false sense of security and fulfillment, while art and cultural activities offer temporary escapes from the dissatisfaction inherent in civilized life. Man, he ripped some fucking truth with that one. Oh, and it's hitting me harder than that this has when the first time I studied this. Like, goddamn, is that right? Religion essentially is used as a means of security and fulfillment, whereas like art and like these other intellectual pursuits are just a way to essentially help you deal with this dissatisfaction in your civilized life and like what you have to do. Because if we didn't live as a civilized culture, we would be more focused on farming, hunting, killing, trying to survive, as opposed to trying to find some sense of fulfillment. And whether that stems from the fact that civilization causes dissatisfaction, or if the dissatisfaction is inherent within ourselves, is it's compelling, right? We can talk about that all day, but Freud hits home with this shit, right? And this is about 7 years into cancer. Okay, so man, he was pessimistic as shit during this time, and cancer, I think, really caused that. But one of the most compelling aspects of the work is Freud's discussion of the superego, the internalized representation of societal norms and morals. He posits that the superego exerts a constant pressure on the individual, leading to feelings of guilt and inadequacy that contribute to the discontent with civilization. Freud's exploration of the superego builds on his earlier theories of the psyche's nature, psyche structure comprising the id, ego, and superego, and offers insight into the internal struggles that shape human behavior and mental health. So, in all reality, this book that he publishes is amazing. Really helps people understand, like, oh yeah, a lot of this is just my fault. I want these things and I don't have these things, or maybe I should just go and like paint a picture. And then 3 years later, his books are publicly burned in Germany. So in 1933, I'm certain a lot of you recognize that time period, and that time period in Germany was not great, especially for someone who was Jewish, because of the Nazis. Right, yeah, so with the public burning of books by the Nazi regime in Germany, among the works consigned to the flames were those of Sigmund Freud, whose writings were targeted due to their perceived challenge to Nazi ideology, because Nazi ideology was more, based on pseudoscience, a lot of pseudoscience, and the fact that their race was the superior race, and no one else was as good as them. And Freud was like, "Nah, dog, like everyone sucks, like we all suck." And also, Freud was Jewish, so or at least he had Jewish heritage. The event was part of a broader campaign by the Nazis to cleanse German culture of what they considered an un-German spirit, which included the suppression of intellectual dissent and the promotion of anti-Semitic policies. So the book burnings across Germany were orchestrated by the German Student Union, which aligned itself with Nazi aims. And on May 10th, 1933, in university towns such as Berlin, Bonn, Heidelberg, students gathered to burn tens of thousands of books deemed incompatible with Nazi worldview. The books and what was taught in them made them question too many things. And they're like, "Listen, this is not right. This is making me feel un-German and unsafe. Get rid of it." Which is what I feel like happens with a lot of Americans today. They're like, "Listen, what you're saying is un-American. So fuck you. Get rid of it." That happens a lot today too. It's really sad. But Freud's books were seen as undermining the moral fabric of society and representing degenerate Jewish intellectualism. Disgusting. That is disgusting viewpoint there. They were among those destroyed in the ceremonial pyres. Freud's reaction to the burnings was notably stoic and laced with his characteristic wit. He's reported to have said, "What progress we are making. In the Middle Ages, they would have burnt me. Nowadays, they are content with burning my books." What a way to view that, just like, well, at least humans are doing a little bit better. They're just burning the books. They're not just killing the person anymore. So, good on them. Despite this outward display of equanimity, the book burnings signified the growing threat to intellectual freedom and the safety of Jews in Nazi Germany. And so because of this, well, not necessarily just because of this, but 5 years later, he would flee Nazi Germany and move to London, England. So the rise of the Nazis and spread of their anti-Semitic policies to Austria placed Freud, his family, and his colleagues in immediate danger, not only because of Freud's Jewish heritage, but also due to his prominence as an intellectual and the nature of his psychoanalytic work, which was reviled by the Nazi regime, as demonstrated with the book burnings. The situation in Vienna became increasingly untenable for Freud and other Jews who faced harassment, persecution, and the threat of arrest. Freud was initially reluctant to leave Vienna, the city where he had lived and worked for most of his life, and which was integral to the development of psychoanalysis. However, the severity of the threats against him and the intervention of international friends and colleagues, including Princess Marie Bonaparte, a psychoanalyst and close friend of Freud's, as well as the American ambassador to France, William Bullitt, and the British psychoanalyst Ernest Jones, made it clear that emigration was necessary for his safety. With the help of these influential figures, Freud was able to secure exit permits for himself, his immediate family, and a number of his associates. In June 1938, Freud, aged 82 and suffering from cancer, left Vienna for London, where he was welcomed and given refuge. His departure was not without loss. Freud was forced to leave behind a significant portion of his possessions, including his library and personal collection of antiquities. Moreover, 4 Freud sisters who remained in Vienna would later die in Nazi concentration camps, which is awful. And his sisters at the time would have been a little younger than Freud, but not that much younger. So they're 70s, a couple in their 60s, and so they were old. And most of what happened to anyone that was elderly or considered not fit for slavery, essentially, were killed, and they unfortunately were as well. So Freud's arrival in London marked the beginning of the final chapter of his life. He continued to work and write in London, compiling Moses and Monotheism, among his other works. Despite his declining health, Freud maintained his intellectual productivity and his commitment to psychoanalysis until his death in September of 1939. And here's where he'd pass away. So after a very long and arduous battle with the cancer of the jaw, having lived the final year of his life in exile from his native Austria following the Nazi annexation, which is so sad. He wouldn't live long enough to see the Nazis essentially beaten and driven back. He'd pass away, sadly, before that would happen. He remained intellectually active until his final days and continuing to write and engage the psychoanalytic community. And his impact on the world and his legacy was celebrated by intellectuals, clinicians, and laypersons alike. His theories on the unconscious dream, sexuality, and the structure of the psyche had challenged prevailing norms and opened new avenues for understanding the human condition. Freud's work continues to provoke debate and inspire research, reflecting the enduring relevance of his insights into the complexities of the mind. The impact of Freud's ideas extend beyond psychology and psychoanalysis, influencing literature, art, culture, and social theory. His conceptualization of the unconscious as a driving force in human behavior, his exploration of the dynamics of repression and resistance, and his development of therapeutic techniques for uncovering hidden aspects of the self left an incredible mark on the way we understand ourselves and the world around us. This was the loss of one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. But his intellectual legacy continues to resonate, evidencing the profound and lasting contributions he made to the study of the human mind. And that brings us to the end of today's historical quarrel. Well, that's it. The end of the quarrel, everyone. If you're here just for the story and you're done, feel free to head out, because this part is where I usually just kind of talk about the subject, go over some stuff, ramble a bit. So, yeah, do with that with what you will. Sigmund Freud is a very interesting figure. Definitely has been very impactful in my life, because I studied psychology in high school quite a bit, and I took a college course for it. And that was interesting. And a lot of his ideas and aspects, we make jokes about, but like he honestly did have a very deep understanding of the human mind and the human conscious. And I think he was very close to a lot of ideas that we've developed further and in today's time, but not close enough, which is fine. It's fucking 1800s and the late 19th century, early 20th century is when a lot of his work would happen. That being said, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the support. I seriously appreciate it. If you found any, found any value in this show today, this episode, or other episodes in the past, please subscribe, leave a comment if you're on YouTube, leave a review if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasts, places where you can listen to your podcast. It really helps grow the show, helps me know that this is something to keep doing. I'm probably going to keep doing it just because I enjoy doing it, but still. The more people that listen to it, and obviously, if I can turn this into something where it's I can work on it full time, make enough from it, then I would. I definitely would do that. I'd make the show 1,000 times better. But that takes a lot of help from listeners and from people that I'd have to be able to hire, and I'd only be able to do that if I had enough viewership and support from the viewers. So. If you do want to support the show more, there's Patreon. But again, I don't upload on there a lot, and I don't expect people to pay for something that where they're not getting a lot of value out of it. If you do want to, just because you just want to support the show, for right now, there's not going to be a ton of content being put on Patreon, but eventually I do plan on releasing early episodes. So like my idea for Ancient Tabletops, you'll get early release episodes over there. With that, when those come out, you'll get scripts and other things for that once I have them all written. Shots. Might even like credit you as like a supporter, or I just like put your name in the credits of like an episode or two for that series. If we ever do streams and stuff too, we might do Patreon exclusive streams, like little group hangouts, stuff like that. So if you want to do that, you can go sign up. A couple tiers of support. Do what you can. There's a free tier as well. So even if you just want to do the free tier and just kind of like, I want to be on the Patreon just so I can see when he uploads stuff. So feel free to do that. Other than that, I mean, life's been crazy, man. Definitely been it's been a journey. Been a big journey. Work's been a lot of fun. A lot of crazy stuff. Well, I say fun, but what I mean is work has been difficult. But that's fine. Life needs to be hard sometimes. And so, also, I went and saw the Iron Claw, that movie. The movie fucked me up, man. That shit really, really fucked me up. That was gonna be so sad. Goddamn. If you want a good cry, if you want to have a good cry and you've been feeling like you need a good cry, go watch the Iron Claw. It's a great movie. Zac Efron did a fantastic job as Kevin Von Erich, and I mean the rest of the actors as well. They all did amazing. A24. They make some real good films, man. Lighthouse, good one. Midsommar, really good. Just a lot of good movies from A24. A lot of interesting ideas, and the way they write stories is just great. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. I had a good cry. I just unfortunately in my life have had things where I can definitely empathize with Kevin Von Erich a bit, and some of the feelings of loss definitely got me thinking about the loss lately and how it impacts you. Especially sibling loss. It's just awful, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, because just there's nothing quite like it. I've had other deaths in my family, but like the impact that a sibling passing away can have on you is intense. It yeah, like again, just there's nothing that quite describes that pain, and just I don't know if any of you ever experienced that. You have my full empathy. I definitely understand it, and know that you are still a sibling. You're still a brother or sister, no matter what. That title will never change, be taken away from you just because of the loss of someone. You still had those experiences, and that's who you were to them, and who you will always be to them. It's just it just sucks, it's just painful. It's painful to watch someone else go through that, and even through the lens of like a camera, like in like obviously a story where they're acting and stuff. It's just they did so well that it felt so real, and it was impressive. So if you wanna go see something good, go watch that movie. Could not recommend it enough. My God. Moving on from that sad stuff. I will be working on. I don't know if you can tell. I got a new camera. So if the video version of this is up on YouTube, which I have been trying to do, but my God, DaVinci takes forever to render the videos. Like I'm talking like I was trying to render a video for like 2 days at one point, and I was trying to see if there's like just something going on. It was just eating up a lot of like my CPU's memory, taking about like 78% of it or something, which is nuts. So I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can fix that and like have it not eat up as much, or if like I just need to upgrade I probably just need to build a PC. I'm using a laptop. I know I've known for a long time I just need to build a PC, but I just don't want to drop the money into that right now. But I'm gonna have to. So probably what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna do that. Other production quality updates are XLR. So I'm gonna get the XLR set up here soon. Hopefully, I'm looking into which roadcaster to get, or which essentially like soundboard to get, and then looking how to like set that all up and using that. So that way we'll have a bit of a better overall higher sound quality. I know like the sound quality isn't terrible right now with the editing that I do in Adobe, but again, I know it could be better. I know there's aspects to XLR and capturing the sound in that way it's going to sound cleaner and crisper. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and get some soundproof or noise cancellation like pads to set up along the walls, just so the sound doesn't reverberate and like reflect off of the walls in the room, and so we're not getting as much of like an echo in certain aspects. And it's already not terrible, but the more I can reduce that and the more I can make this like a studio quality recording is the better, obviously. And then I don't know. I've been wanting to explore more artistic pursuits. Been playing a lot of D&D, or getting ready to play D&D with my friends again. Really excited. I'm excited for that. I always have a good time DMing. Oh man, life has been good for the most part. Just been a lot of work, though, that is for sure. And having to work a lot is a good thing, in my opinion. So, yeah, if you guys are wanting to message or talk, just reach out to me. I'm not like gonna be weird about anything and just be like, oh, I'm gonna ignore you. Like, that's fucking weird to do. I'm not that important. I'm just a guy. I'm just some dude. So I mean, I'm definitely just some dude, man. Like I'm just a regular dude, like everyone else. Yeah, just feel free to reach out. I'd love to get to know the people who listen. I'd love to get to know you guys a lot more. That'd be cool. That being said, I'm out. I love you all. You have a great day, a great week. Goodbye.